All right, guys, we are back for round two of how to process your deer from animal to freezer. So we are going to remove quarter, is what we call it, quartering, taking the forelegs off. We'll take the back straps out. I'll get some roast meat. I'll get some rib bone meat, and we'll get all of the meat, usable meat, off of your animal, and then we'll show you how to debone it and separate by muscle groups and everything. It's really, really simple. It's really not that hard. Just take your time, watch what you're doing, and you can do this too. So I'm gonna start off with what I need today is we're gonna need a box of freezer paper. I need a box of plastic wrap. Of course, I need my gloves to work with and a good sharp knife. And today I will be using my butcher kit. So I've got all kinds of different knives and a little saw and a sharpener and rib spreader and stuff. So I've got it all. So I'm going to use my kit today, but we're going to start with the front legs. All right, so we're going to start by removing the front legs. Any hair that I got on, I've let it hang for a while, so most of it is actually just, I'm able to pull it right off or rub it right off. But any hair that we get on this, we've got to get that off. We don't want any hair on it. The hardest part of keeping the hair off the deer is his bottom legs, his shank, and up here around his hide, where we're just cutting against the grain to get around the pelt to get his pants off. So I'll work with that in a second, but we will start here. The only thing I need is a good fillet knife. This is only being held on by blades and muscle. All right, so you can actually cut through a whole entire deer with just a pocket knife. There's no shoulder, they don't have the same kind of bones that we have in their shoulders. So I just want to move it and see right where it's going to flex. It's going to flex about right here. And so I'm going to take my knife, cut through this fat, pull it away from the chest, pull it apart, make a slit, pull it apart, right through here, right on the inside of the shoulder blade. Just keep running it apart. Don't drop it. Now you have a shoulder. Before I take the other shoulder off, I'm gonna go ahead and debone this just to show you. So there's shoulder bones. You start up here on the top part of the shoulder, and you can use your hands. You can feel through. There's a blade across the bottom, and then a point that sticks up and runs right up through here. So I'm gonna run my knife on the inside, which would be the front side of the deer. Run it right up to the top, right along that blade, and then I'm going to turn sideways and basically like I'm filleting a fish. And the bone doesn't come very far forward on this front leg. So it's just going to come to right there. Your knife. All right, now on this side, I'm going to find that other bone blade, and this is on beef where you're going to get your T-bone steaks from. It's the T. Do the same thing but backwards. I'm going to come to the back and fillet it off. All right, from this bone here, I'm going to keep coming down to the knuckle. I'm going to go over and see where this extra muscle comes across. Follow right down here to the front of the knee. Come up. Get the rest of this off. Got a big tendon on the inside of here. Got through that. Slice it up. Now, what a lot of people does is a lot of people takes the front shoulders because there's a lot of gristle and there's a lot of muscle groups in it that really makes it not real great for steaks. It's not the greatest meats for steaks, except for the second most tender cut is right here on the inside. There's still a lot of gristle. This inside of the leg is basically get this little silver skin off right here. And a lot of times I won't even pull the silver skin here outside because I wait till I'm prepping it before I cook. So it's not a lot of meat. That little bit of meat, I done chunked it, but that little bit of meat is so good and tender. That's basically their rotator cuff. They're not throwing baseballs, so they're not using that rotator cuff at all whatsoever. So that's a good meat. But my buck, I already know all my plans are pretty much going to the grinder. We're gonna make sausage out of the majority of this guy. So, but I am gonna go ahead and remove this outer layer of silver skin and fat and tallow. That beef tallow, pig tallow all tallow is not created equal. Deer tallow is awful. It's not awful, but it will ruin your meat. You do not want to eat any tallow. Hold on, I gotta pause the video. My son decides to call me. Alright, and I'll take care of the rest later, but then there's our meat. Now, our shanks, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go and just hack the leg or cut through the joint and I'll keep the shank whole. But today we're just gonna go right down this side of the leg. Right down this back side of the leg. Cut this tendon off up here. I don't need tendon in my burger. A lot of tendon in this shank. A lot of joints in the meat, the silver skin, and it is really, really, really tough. Unless you can do a really good slow cook. Azabuki, I believe is what they call it. So it's a little easier for me today because I am just grinding. This deer was a really old deer, and so I'm not gonna be getting a lot of steak out of it. I get steak out of her does, not her bucks. So I had to grind, and then I got a little more. So as you can see, we don't leave a lot of meat. All right, one leg down. All right. Two legs. Front leg's good. All right, now I'm gonna cut out the most famous part, the best part, well, third best part to a deer. Back straps. So all this fat cat, we want to leave it off, take it off. It's really, there's not a lot, and we can do that once we get it off, or you can do it before, just depends on what you want to do. So I'm gonna go and leave it on. I'm gonna find the backbone. I'm gonna come up here to where the hip bones join the backbone, right in about that crease. I'm gonna start right here on one side of the backbone, and I'm just gonna follow the backbone all the way down. It's actually going to come up into the neck area a little bit. I'm going to come back up here to the top. I started on one side, switch to the other. Good. Switch to the side, come around that leg. And because I took that belly fat out, it's going to be a little bit easier to see it. I come down here to where a little bit of the skeleton comes in. And you can see where this meat comes over, and there's a natural crease right here before the ribs. So I'm just gonna come right down through there. I'm gonna sharpen my knife real quick. Just staying right on top of the ribs. It comes down to here. Now, work this back strap, get it to come loose from the top. Once I get enough room where I can get my knife down in here, I'm gonna cut little J hooks. Cut. Come down around the backbone and then over around the top side of the ribs. Down to the backbone and then over across the ribs. Then I grab it from the bottom, usually. I'll do the other one that way. All right, so now back strap. All right. All right, so I'm gonna get this fat cap off. Like you're filleting a fish. All right. gonna dress it up a little bit. Get more of this silver skin off. This tendon right through there. All right. Now we got back straps. So what we're gonna do, I usually take about 6 inches, make a slice. And then just kind of cut that one in half. So now I have 4 back straps. All right, so now I'm gonna go and show you one version, how I wrap my meat. You can use vacuum sealers. You can do it this way. They're both pretty much, if you do it right, both of them is gonna last you about the same. Vacuum sealers are a little bit easier. It doesn't use as much materials. I got my roll in backwards. It's not one done roll. Alright, I'm going to stretch it out. I usually put anywhere from 1 to 2, depending on what I think, how many meals I think we're going to need with 6 inches. Instead of going on and slicing it up into smaller pieces, I'm going to go and just do 1. And I'm going to try to roll it real tight. I'm going to try to get all the air out of it and roll it a few times. And then I'm going to turn it. Try to keep the air out of it until I get it over this way. And I'm going to squeeze all the air out of it from the closed end up towards the top. Get all the air out of it, roll it one more time. Roll it forward, roll it back. So now that is completely saran wrapped. Now I'll take my freezer paper. Slick side up. Put it on here. Roll it like I'm making Subway sandwiches. Roll it up. Take a little piece of tape. Take a ink pen, and I'm going to mark 1 back strap. And I'm going to put the year. So that way I know what year it was. I got my back straps. All right. I know these are back straps, so I'm going to set them in there. I'm going to do the rest of the rolling at home. So same thing I did on this side, going to do it to this side. So now this one, I'm going to do it different. All right, I'm going to do this a second way. I'm actually going to leave this silver skin on. To me, I don't mind venison taste. I don't mind a little gamey. I don't mind a little wild. So I'm okay with leaving this on. The only thing this silver skin does for me is adds one more layer of protection against freezer burn. So I'm going to leave it on. Some people don't like it. And when you leave it on, they say that it gives it a little more gamey taste, a little more wild taste. So if you was doing this and you don't like that real gamey taste, go ahead and get that silver skin off before you go and process it and put it in your freezer. Otherwise, it's just adding another layer of protection against freezer burn. It's got to come off before you cook it anyways. But to me, I'll just leave it on. I'm going to make my 6 inch. 6 inch. 6-inch and a piece. So I got my 10 back straps. I almost said tenderloin. It's not a tenderloin. All right. If you get a real big, thick deer and you want to take the rib meat out, all right, you can take a hacksaw and cut all the way down the bones. You can. I don't. I don't like having bone char, bone gristle, bone saw, dust in my meat. So whenever I'm taking the ribs out, I'm actually just going to come in underneath one of the ribs and come down, then come above the next one. And cut it out. So I got rib meat. I'm leaving the fat cap on just for identification purposes once I get back to the house, because I'm putting it all in one pot. Of it, there's not a lot left, so that is now going to be dog food. So anything that I don't cut off of this and use for me, it gets smoked and cooked and given for dog treats to my dog. So even if I leave just a little bit of some meat on, that's really not a lot. It's really you see a chunk here and it looks like a good amount. When I come through here and clean it, I mean, it's not a lot. 2 bites maybe of a steak. 3 if you're small. But anyways, I use every bit of a deer. Every bit of it. If I'm not eating it, it's dog food. So now back legs. Back legs, they're fun. This is the only time you would ever, if you want to take the feet off, it's the only time you would ever cut through the bone. Cut through right here. But like I said, I don't like bone sawdust getting into my meat. So I just leave the feet on. So I'm going to take it off. I'm going to go back to my skinning knife. Cut right up through the middle. Right where the leg meets the hip, come right up through the top until it hits the bone, the butt bone, and then it's going to have a little rounded joint. It's going to come around, come right back into just a little bit below the tail, turn and come down the backbone again. Switch back to the long knife. Cut through until you find, now this one is a ball joint in his back legs. I gotta cut down to find that. Cut away from everything else. That way it's ready to fall. Pull down a little bit, it'll help separate it. And there's a little tendon on the inside I gotta cut through. And cut around the skin that holds, the tendons that hold the ball joint together. And it comes right off with a knife. All right, so I'm gonna show you how we get your ham meat off. So we got our ham meat here. You got this tendon down here at the bottom. I'm gonna cut up a little bit and just gonna remove that tendon that we don't need. Now, right here in the middle, it's gonna show you right where to cut. You got a crease coming right here through the middle that you can see separating this muscle from this muscle. I'm gonna cut right through it. Come right on out the cap. And as I start to separate it just a little bit, get underneath it. Let's hit the cap. It's going to expose what I call the football roast, or the ball roast. You can flip the leg over. There we go. You can just pull it apart and you can see right where it's going to separate, and you just help it separate. There's a gland right in here that we're gonna cut out. Alright, so other than our shank, here's our ham meat, and we got our round, our ball, and that is one of the best cuts to cut deer steak from. Just go there and just slice it, 2-inch steaks, and it's amazing. So I'm gonna leave that together. That's our round, and then we got our sirloin. Cut that gland out. we don't want that one either. So now we got round, top round, bottom round, football roast, sirloins. And that's our meat. And then shank from the leg. But then that is our steaks, or stew meats, or chili meats, or whatever we're going to use it for. So, and then I can go through and either go ahead and pre-cut it for steaks and then wrap it up pre-cut, just like I did in that other video. Or a lot of times what I'll do is I'll leave it whole and freeze it whole. And then that way when I pull it out, I know exactly what cut of meat I'm pulling out, and I know exactly what I want to use it for, and which deer it came off of, and what year it came off of. And so then I can very specifically pick what foods I want to eat and how I want to use that meat for that meal. So, but for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just put it in our meat bin. And I got one more leg to cut off. Now, you want to make sure you get all the meat off that you want to eat before you cut this back leg off. Because as soon as you cut this back leg off, everything else hits the ground. And as you can see, I'm out in the barn, so I don't want things to hit the ground. If it hits the ground, it's done, it's over with. So, gotta be very careful. So I'm gonna come through and find this hip joint again, just like this round one come around. I'm gonna come around this one. Around from the inside. So I reach in and grab, put my hand against the pelvic bone and pull down. And as I cut through, I expose the ball joint. So that way I can see right where I need to cut. And I just put pressure and pull down as I cut around that tendon around the ball joint, until I can expose it and cut that inside tendon. And it drops. So now I'm going to do the same to this side. Right along that crease right there, and then roll right across. So, it's called a football roast. I call it a football roast because it looks like a football. It kind of looks like a gas steak for a little bitty Harley. But I call it football roast. So here's a better example of why we don't use shank for steaks. is look at all the tendon and silver skin in there. All that. This is just ground meat. Unless you can do, like I said, cook it real slow. There's some pretty good recipes out there for that. Scared to say it because I think I'm wrong, but I always call it asabuki. And honestly, if you're just cutting this up for ground, it really don't matter how you cut it up and if you keep the meat muscle groups together, because it's all going in the grinder. Whatever you're using for ground meat, really doesn't matter. All right, and the rest gets smoked for the dog. And that is our deer. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. I hope you appreciate and hope you learned something from how to butcher your own meat, save a little bit of money, do it yourself, and know where your animals come from, know where your foods comes from, know what it looks like, know how healthy it was before you started eating it. I know none of these deers get antibiotics, so they're all pretty healthy. The ones, well, most of them. There's a few you gotta watch out for. But anyways, thanks for joining us. I can't be too loud. Jackpot Judo and his son's in the stand a couple hills over. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up, get this meat to the house, get it all packaged up, ready for grind, and package my steaks up and put them in the freezer. So thanks for joining us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. See you guys on the next video.